The first thing I want to show you is how this looks after it's been damp stretched. Okay, now you can see the paper has suffered absolutely no trauma whatsoever. It's just as lovely as it was before I damp stretched it. I was a bit concerned, to be honest, because with my spray being broken it was too wet, but it's fine, it's absolutely fine, it's dried out beautifully. Now obviously it would look very different with a lot more hand stitching on there, and like I said, I'm not sure that I'll do that. The thing I want you to get from this class is ideas for creating your own surfaces, okay? I'm hoping that you're going to come away with so many ideas to create unique surfaces for your embroidery that your head's going to be crammed with ideas and crammed with inspiration. That's what I really want. So my advice to you would be, don't plan a big piece yet. Wait till we've gone through this 2 weeks and then consider everything you've seen. Make little samples as we go along if you want to, and look at them, and then if you're thinking about making a new piece the week after, look through all your samples and see which you think will fit best with what your plans are. So that's what I'm hoping for. I won't make a finished piece in this. I'm just giving you food for thought and ideas for unique surfaces, okay? So that's how that looks there. Now today, what I want to do is this one. This has got a lace backing, okay? It's a piece of lace I bought from John Lewis, and this is it here. I've cut some more out for today. So this is it here, and it's layered, this lace is in the hoop, and then I've layered vintage cloth on top of it, and then I've layered paper on top of that. This is the vintage cloth. It's similar, it's come from the same piece, but it's like a different coloured section. But like I was saying about finding raised embroidery, I struggled to find some. This isn't that raised, but if you've got an old tablecloth, for example, a vintage tablecloth that's been hand embroidered, that you're prepared to cut up, that would work just as well as, you know, with this. Now I've been looking at this morning, and I think my intention yesterday, or earlier in the week, was to just get the lace, lay that on top. You see, I mean, when you play with fabric and you get cloth and you handle it and you move it about, it's very easy for your intentions to change, because my intention was to do that, create a sandwich, take it to the machine and do something else. In fact, no, I'm still going to do that, because for 1 second I had a thought that it might be better to cut this up, okay, and place it randomly on here. But I'm thinking I will be able to cut through the white areas, because what I want is areas of lace as well, like I've got here, but I'll still be able to cut through the white areas. And what I also want is, I don't want that to be my centre. I'm very anti-centre. If you've done a lot of my classes, you'll know that. If you're a newbie, you'll get used to it. So what I think I'm going to do is, this is me getting prepped for the machine. So I've cut my lace, I've pressed my lace, that's the right side, just put that there. What I'm going to do is cut this off down here, so that I don't have this piece centred, okay? Now I don't want to cut too much off there, because I don't want that to get lost in the edge of the hoop. So I mean, everybody has to consider, before we begin, we all have to consider and double check and question what we're doing and ask ourselves, is this piece of cloth telling me it needs to do this or that or the other? So then if I put that there, I'm putting it in the centre, aren't I? So if I put that over there, like that, and then put my paper on the top, then my designer boundary is the edge of the paper, okay? So that's those three sandwiched together. So I need to get them in my hoop now. So obviously the hoop is back to front, isn't it? So I don't know if it'll be too thick. I'll just try. It's gone in, which is really good. So that means it's really, really tight. Okay, so press that down. I obviously can't really pull this from the edges. No, I think I need to do it again, because I think it's... put my finger through the paper. But that doesn't matter. Unscrew it a little bit, I think, and do that again. That's better. That's much better. It doesn't matter about that paper because I was going to tear it anyway. So then what I do, well, that's torn for me, so I'm just going to pull that bit off there, just randomly, just an organic shape, disregard that. And then I've got this little screwdriver that comes with my sewing machine. Now where I'm going to select here, I can still see this pattern through my paper. So I'm going to select here areas that I want exposed. Okay, and just tear them away. Simple as that. So there's lace on the bottom, but don't worry about that, that's not wasted, that lace. I'll come to that in a sec. Tear away these random areas that I want exposed. And we could all start with exactly the same fabrics and lace and exactly the same paper, but none of our work would be the same because we would all choose different areas to tear. We would all tear in a different manner, in a different shape, in a different form. So they would not be the same. So you're really going to be able to create really unique surfaces. So now I've exposed that bit there in particular, I want the lace to show through. So, junk through the door. So I'm going to cut away the vintage so there's just lace there. Now you can do this as much or as little as you want. I'm trying my best not to cut through the lace, that's why I'm being careful. Don't throw this away. Snippet cloth, you'll be finding out about snippet cloth. Okay. So that's a bit of lace exposed. I'm going to keep that. Look at all the colour in that. That's a really valuable piece of cloth. I'm definitely going to keep that. And then perhaps over here where there's just a lot of white going on, tear through the paper again. And again, cut away the white. Now I can pull that up because the edge is there. So that means I won't cut my lace. Try your very best not to cut through paper with your embroidery scissors because it will wreck them. Be very careful. Don't be tempted to cut through both layers with your embroidery scissors because you will spoil them. And then up here, I want something organic going on. I want to get rid of that straight line if I can, of that. I want to disturb it anyway, that straight line of the edge of that white cloth. Okay. Now you've got to see the bigger picture with this because you've got to see how this is going to look when you've done the machine part and then when you've added the hand embroidery. Okay, so I think that's enough snipping for now, but you can come and go and add and take away as much as you want, right? So I'll put that little screwdriver back in its home. Tidy, tidy, Karen. Move that. Move the scissors and bring my machine round. I just love this. I love it. And every time I pick that other sample up that I've just shown you, I mean, I've embellished it with hand embroidery. All these little islands of lace, I think of them as islands. Buttonhole lace around the edges. I mean, it's just unique, isn't it? You really, and I say this a lot and people laugh at me, but it's true, believe me. You couldn't go to a shop and buy that. What we made the other day with the raised areas in the paper, you couldn't go to a shop and buy that. So what we're going to do here, you couldn't go to the shop and buy it. And like I say, 40 of us could start with exactly the same things, but they would all look different. And that's the beauty of this process. So I'm going to have to thread my machine up because I've been doing twin needle sewing with one of my other classes. So I had to change feet and everything, and I had a bit of a nightmare with them actually. I don't know if it was you, and I was getting oil on my work, so it happened again with my other class and I cleaned it out. Look at the colour of that. All that came out of my machine. But like I said to them, that's down to me. I've got a responsibility to check that my equipment's in tip-top condition before I start embroidering, so I've only got myself to blame. and it's a lesson learned, okay. Nothing wrong with learning a lesson. I'm just very grateful and thankful that it didn't happen on something that I've spent weeks and weeks working on and ruined something like that, you know what I mean? So my needle's threaded, the machine's threaded, my feeder down. I'm going to bring this to the machine, put it under there. I'm going to start here, bring my thread to the top, don't forget, hold on to both of those, put my needle in, put my foot down, and I'm going to concentrate at first on the edge. Turn that light off, I'm sorry. On the edge around this hole where the lace is, just tiny circles around the edge, okay. I can cut them off now because they're secure. It's less to worry about, isn't it? Now the reason, you could perhaps leave some of the edge unstitched, but the reason I want to stitch it all is because I'm going to buttonhole lace around this and I need a base to apply that to, so I'll continue stitching. Now there, the paper's lifted above the foot, so just lift the foot and catch it down again, that's not a problem. I'm sticking on something, I don't know what. What's that? I mean, when you've got an edge of cloth, a raw edge of cloth, then it's good to over-saw that raw edge a few times with little circles, just to stop the fraying later on. So that's what I did there, okay. Now I'm nearly all the way around this shape. A little island of lace. So now what I'm going to do, I think on this one, I heavily embellished the paper with free machine circles, and I think it does give it a density. It does really blend it together and marry it all together. So I'm going to do that as I work my way over to this shape. So now what I need to do, I'm nearly at this shape, there's a couple of straggly edges, so I'm just going to tease them away from the embroidery with my finger and catch them down like that. Do that with all the different areas on here, and as you go in you might notice that you think, well, I need something there because that's too much paper, but just give it a chance. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of machine work to cover even this area within this hoop. You're probably talking over an hour, but it is so worth it because then you've got this, something like this to take away and hand embroider, and I will hand embroider this as well on camera and show you how I would treat this. So I'm going to do more of the dense circular stuff, and just as I come to these areas, give them attention as well around the edges. I'm just coming to another shape, so I'm just moving my hoop around to make that easier. So can you see how that surface is building up now? It's truly wonderful. And you might think, I remember when I first started embroidery, I went to City and Guilds. My children were both at primary school, and I was so ignorant of all this. I used to do cross-stitch kits, and I used to do cross-stitch kits for a shop in town. Somebody would want them stitched for them and framed, so I would actually create those pieces and get paid for that, and then give them back to the shop, and then they would get them framed for the customer. So I knew nothing about any of this. I was so ignorant of all this, you wouldn't believe it. And when I went to City and Guilds, I thought, what's the point of putting lace under there? Because you can't see it. You know, what a waste of lace. I mean, okay, in some areas you can see it, you're ripping away and you can see it, but the rest of it's just wasted. Well, can I say that it really isn't? Because if you do this and you feel it in your hand, it's there. This work wouldn't look or handle or be as substantial as it is without that lower layer of whatever it is that you're putting on there. Layering and lower layers are never wasted, even if you can't see them, because number one, you took the time to put them there, so you're putting a bit of yourself in there, a bit of you personally, you're leaving something of yourself in there. But the effect, how the piece handles, how the piece stitches, the whole piece, the actual whole, as in the finished piece, wouldn't be anything as wonderful without that layer. It would be less substantial, okay? So that's really important. That's almost like saying, why put a backing on a quilt because nobody can see it? Well, because the quilt wouldn't be a quilt without that, would it? Every layer has meaning and every layer has a purpose, and it took me a while to realise that, but now I'm finally at that stage. So please don't think that, okay, because when you take this off the machine and start to hand stitch, you will feel the benefit of every single layer, and you will understand how it would detract from the work if those layers weren't there, okay? So trust me on that one. But I do know if you're thinking that, why you're thinking that, because I've been there myself, okay? So I'm going to continue stitching, but I want you to really gain an appreciation of how this is building up as a surface and how unique it is. But then also, some of you might be thinking, well, it's a mess. What's special about that? It looks ridiculous, it looks stupid, it's got no cohesion, it looks separate and fragmented. I agree, I can't argue with that. But like I say, trust me, wait for the bigger picture, and very soon it will look like this, okay? And this is a very non-uniform shape because it's just a sample, but you could make a rectangular piece like this or a circular piece like this, okay? You could make patches of this to use in a patchwork throw. You could make squares of it and join them together in patchwork, okay? You could make a triptych. You could have one piece of hand embroidery with it next to a piece of cross stitch, next to a piece of this. So please trust me, it's so going to be worth it. You'll be amazed at how wonderful it is to feel this in your hand and to work with it with hand stitch, with a needle and thread. So I'll just do a little bit more of this and then I'll finish this off camera, because actually how much of this can you watch me do? So I'm going to move over to here, and here I've got a couple of bits that need to be teased with my finger away, so I'll do that again so that you get a sense of how to do that again, okay? Right, so just, this paper's very soft and pliable, so if I do that, it tends to stay back, okay? And I've just realised I say okay a lot, don't I? Sorry about that. So that's that edge. Now also, if you wanted to, you can encroach onto this fabric with your machine stitch circles if you wanted to give a bit of texture within there. So I'll do that here. It just kind of extends that line and combines it and integrates it. Might show up better on the lace, so I'll meander my way over here with the needle and the circles to this bit of lace and see if it shows up better there. So I'm just going to encroach a little bit into here with the needle and the machine embroidery. There, now you can definitely see that, can't you? How that's affected the surface of the lace. So, you know, play with it and keep going and don't lose patience. Start with a smaller piece. This is quite big. This is an 8-inch hoop. Use a, sorry, no, this is a 10-inch hoop, I think. Use a smaller hoop. Use a 7-inch hoop or an 8-inch hoop and just play. But be brave and see the bigger picture. And I've just noticed here, right, this is what you can do. Through the paper, I've noticed here, there's a little daisy from the lace. What I'm going to do is find my little screwdriver again. And I'm just going to try and lift that paper from there to reveal a little bit of that daisy there, right? You'll notice things like this too, and I'm going to come around and expose that daisy with machine stitch. So that's another unique area within this piece of work. It's lovely, it's stunning. So I'm going to turn off, I'm going to take some pictures of this and then I will come back and demonstrate hand embroidery onto this surface. And I'm so anxious that you all get to this stage, because I can't tell you how good that makes me feel looking at those little islands that are guarded and protected by these buttonhole outlines. I just can't tell you what it does to me. And I know you think I'm sad, but I do know there's several of you who know how I feel and who feel exactly the same. So especially for the newbies, trust me, just trust me and see how you begin to feel about this work when you come to hold it in your hand and embroider on it. Okay.